Hey, what's going on out there? I'm Sean Devine. Hope you are doing well and welcome into the studio. I have a video today where I'm going to show you 3 essential bass, sub-bass, 808 mixing tips that are going to separate you from the rest. This is going to give you that extra 5-10% that's so important these days if you're gonna compete.
And I ain't never gonna be perfect, but I'm gonna die trying. It ain't even about what I be doing, it's what Jesus did. I'm a son, I got a servant, and I'm also Jesus' friend. Even if there's hell around me, I got heaven deep within. If you ever see me inhale, it's because I'm breathing in.
I always wondered as a beginner, without these tools, like, why is my bass so close, but it just is not hitting quite the same way as some of my favorite records? So we're gonna break it down. You're gonna have some fun with these tools and have some aha moments. I know I have as well. So let's get started. I'm gonna show you this plugin that is called Little Labs VOG, or Voice of God. It is a bass resonance tool. What I'll tell you is that this plugin does something magic to kicks and bass, especially if it's close, but you just need a little bit more sub-frequency or sub-harmonic content. This is going to push you over the edge. Now, I do want to preface, if you are on your phone, you're not going to be able to hear this. So get your best headphones out. I've got some open backs on right now, or even better, if you can get on your studio monitors so that you can feel this, because that's what this does. It generates the subharmonics that you can actually feel. May seem subtle to some of you. I have this at a really low amplitude right now. You can increase that obviously, but I would just say, especially if you're having trouble kind of hearing your bass in your space. I'm in a treated room with monitors and a subwoofer. This is the one plugin in this video that I would just say, if you're on headphones or something with less sub bass, be really careful, because this plugin can definitely do some dangerous things with your bass in terms of just the level and the impact of what's going on down there. But super, super helpful just to squeeze that extra little bit out of your kicks and out of your sub bass. Next up, we're going to talk a little bit about metering and just kind of having a representation frequency wise of what's going on in our mix. If you're a beginner, sometimes the biggest issue is that you just can't hear what's going on in the low end. And so a tool like this, Tonal Balance Control 3, which I love, I use this in every session, this will give us a reference point compared to any record that we want, really. I've measured a lot of different references from Spotify and different places, mixes that I've done, and it will give us this full spectrum reference or analyzation of everything that's going on frequency-wise, so we can compare and make adjustments. For example, let's just put this on. This was a track I measured by Indie Tribe called Rob Hell. Similar track, I would say, in terms of what's going on.
I bet God is looking down at me like I made him, cause he loved what he created. Jesus is the king, I feel like someone had to say it. Do I live for God or for the money or for Satan? God's my top pick, like the subject of a conversation.
The goal is not to match this exactly, but it's just gonna give you a reference of where the low end is. So for some of these tracks that you throw in your car, or you're listening on some good monitors or good headphones, and you're loving the bass, if you measure with tonal balance those tracks, capture them through Spotify, you can capture anything on your computer that's playing out of your interface or your computer speakers. But once you've measured that, you can just use that as your reference point for the low end to make sure that things aren't overly loud, or that they're just not loud enough or impactful enough to have a representation that's close to your reference. The last one's a really powerful tip for monitoring low end if you're, again, not on monitors or a subwoofer. I've showed this before in a similar way, but the way things work these days, a lot of you probably don't even know that I've been on YouTube doing these tutorials for over 10 years. It's using a linear phase EQ. So this is just the stock linear phase EQ in Logic. And I have a preset that I made that is essentially just a roll off from 100 hertz below. If we just turn that on, all we're going to hear is everything below 100. Now, important to note is that we're going to place this after our limiter or our maximizer, because we want to hear exactly what the low end is going to sound like once it leaves the DAW. So once it hits my limiter, whether or not I'm using true peak, I'm not actually on this track. We'll talk about that in a sec. We're going to hear the low end exactly the way it will be once it leaves the DAW.
My flesh, I killed a beat, but my spirit is not dying. Like never gonna be perfect, but I'm gonna die trying. They try to bring me down.
So you'll notice that we actually clipped after I introduced the linear phase EQ, even after the limiter. And sometimes this can be helpful to let you see what that sub's going to do in terms of your limiter. And so then I can actually adjust the output level a little bit, turn on true peak. And just make sure that everything's nice and clean. There's not a bunch of distortion and clipping down there. And if things are getting reckless, you can bring back your levels on the limiter. You see, I actually turned this down about a dB coming into ozone, and then we turn on true peak just to control it and tame it a little bit more. I'm going to give you a little bonus as well on this one, and this one goes against the grain in terms of what a lot of engineers have said more recently, which is never use a high pass filter on your mix bus. I would disagree, and I would kind of asterisk that a little bit and say, don't use just any high pass filter on your stereo bus, but actually, depending on which one it is, it can be really helpful to clean things up down there, make sure things are tight but still impactful. And that's where this Manley massive passive comes in. And so this one goes all the way down to 12 hertz. Most high pass filters, will start somewhere between 30, 40, something like that, like my SSL Fusion here. Yeah, this one starts at 30. So this goes even lower, a lot lower. And so I just set it to 23, and then we'll start at 0. Listen very closely to what this does. We don't lose the impact. It just makes it a little bit cleaner, a little bit tighter down there. And that's the goal of using a high pass filter here on the stereo bus in this way. All right, y'all. So seemingly simple techniques and tools on the surface, but I think once you apply these in your sessions, you're going to notice they make a huge difference in your low end. Try out this Little Labs VOG plugin. You're going to find that some magic can happen in your low end once you start dialing this in a little bit. I think you're going to have fun with it. Also, just tonal balance control 3, a great way to reference low end and just make sure that everything is not getting out of hand down there and that we're going to be able to compete. Because at the end of the day, a lot of low end is just making sure that we get the most out of it, but we don't wreck the rest of our mix and the rest of our session. And in some of these hip hop tracks, like this one, where the bass is such a focal point next to the vocal, getting it to be as big as it needs to be, it can be a really difficult balance. No pun intended. Hope this was helpful for y'all. Stay blessed. We'll talk to you soon.